Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, June 9th, 2022 open session for North Clackamas School Board. Calling this meeting to order now at 6:30. We'll begin with our native land acknowledgement. Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Ford. We acknowledge the land on which we sit, which we call the North Clackamas School District. It rests on the traditional and indigenous lands and village sites of the native peoples of the Kalapuya, Chinook, Molalla, and Clackamas. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the ability to learn, work, and be a community on this land. And we offer to the original caretakers of this region. We offer thanks. We recognize the historic policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected Indigenous and Native families, both past, present, and that will affect those in the future, and honor the resilience and revitalization of our Indigenous and Native communities. We pay our respect to the elders, both past and present, who have been stewards of this land throughout the generations.
Thank you. Director McVeigh will lead us in the flag salute. Okay, I'll begin by opening the floor regarding our minutes from May 26, 2022.
Chair Ford, I move that we approve the minutes from the board meeting, May 26, 2022.
Second.
It's properly moved by Director Benaloga and second by Director Perez. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And I'm also aye. Minutes approved. Next is our consent agenda. We have 6 items: employment changes, policy revisions, confidential and non-represented staff employment agreement 2022-2024, Milwaukee High School, Milwaukee Art Academy of Arts, OSAA cooperative agreement, and travel requests for Rex Putnam High School cross country, travel requests for Rex Putnam High School cheer. Open the floor for a motion.
Director Schradel will move consent agenda that includes employment changes, policy revisions, confidential and non-representative staff employment agreements 2022-2024, Milwaukee High School, Milwaukee Academy of Arts, OSAA cooperative agreement, travel requests Rex Putnam High School cross country, travel requests Rex Putnam High School cheer.
Have a second?
Bauer, second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion needed? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Director Perez?
Aye.
Excellent. Unanimously approved. Next is our community comments. I'm going to read a portion of our public comment at board meetings. It's BDDH. Any individual desiring to speak may indicate their desire by submitting their name, city of residence, either email or phone number, and the group, if any, that is represented on the sign-in sheet prior to the board meeting. A speaker should give their name, city of residence, and the group, if any, that is represented, and will limit their presentation to 3 minutes. If there is more patrons desiring to present comments than time allotted, the board chair has authority to reduce presentation time for individual speakers or institute a prioritization process with attention to order of sign up and city of residence. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs that are of concern to them. The board is restricted from hearing and will not consider complaints regarding any individual district staff member or any person connected with the district. As an organization centered around youth and their positive development, all speakers will model respectful public comment and will be mindful of civil discourse. The board vests in its chair or other presiding officers authority to terminate the remarks of any individual when those remarks do not adhere to the rules established in a policy. We'll begin with Alexis Lassard Templin. Just so everyone knows, the timer is over there. Please state your name and city.
I'm so sorry. Practice that. Alexis Lassard Templing, Clackamas. As a social worker, mental health therapist, and parent of 2 young children in the NCSD school system, I am here today to ask you to consider implementing the ban of guns on NCSD campuses for CHL holders. SB 554 was signed into Oregon law in November of 2021. Within the last 6 months, there have been 250 mass shootings, and within the last week, there have been 20. As we now know, armed police officers pursuing the shooter in Texas weren't enough to stop the murder of children and teachers. CHL holders will do nothing to stop a similar atrocity happening within our schools. I would like the board to consider joining the 25 other school districts across the state that have enacted this ban. I know that every board member keeps the safety and care of our students in the forefront of their minds, actions, and policies. And I thank you for your service and appreciate you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rachel Jansen.
I want to thank you, Madam Chair, and the rest of the board for serving our community and our students.
Can you state your name and
I'm
city, and then
Rachel
your time will
Jansen
start?
in Happy Valley.
Thank you.
I would like to talk today about, I've talked to some teachers that say that their students are required to have early sexualization of children by various pronoun changes, various other comments, and that's what I'd like to direct my comments to today. As an RN who worked in mental health and a taxpayer where 1/3 of my taxes goes to North Clackamas schools, I oppose the early sexualization of children using books, curriculum, and gender confusing concepts, such as different pronouns than who they are, because the known harms is demonstrated by many research studies, especially from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and many others. As I'm sure all of you know, that children are very impressionable, they're easily manipulated, and they need protection. Basic biology shows us that no one can change their DNA, and sex changes are physically impossible. All human life exists only due to male and female unions or embryos created by male and female. And as you know, there are over 6,500 genes that are expressed differently in men from women. And I have some research here if you'd like to see that. Gender confusion undermines self-esteem. Children don't understand the long-term ramifications of discussions of sexuality. Discussions like this have been used by predators to groom and abuse children for centuries. Teaching that gender and sex assignment is a choice increases confusion, depression, and leads to higher levels of suicide. Children are particularly vulnerable during puberty, when they are often struggling with ADHD, autism spectrum disorders, depression, physical changes, dysfunctional home situations, and other issues. Some therapists are coaching them that all their problems will go away if they change their gender. The second annual Detransition Awareness Day was held Saturday, March 17, 2022. People who had started medical transitioning, attempting to look like and live as the opposite sex with drugs, hormones, and surgeries, told their stories of detransitioning, accepting going back to their true biological sex. They expressed alarm at the lack of fact-based counseling to accept their true biological self. They are alarmed that therapists went against science, thinking these students were mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or psychologically capable of making permanent decisions by cutting off body parts and irreversible hormone therapy at young ages. They now regret signing consent forms they know did not tell them all the consequences they now are enduring and suffer. These represent thousands across the country and around the world who have deep emotional, psychological problems, but they cannot change these due to the damage by surgery and hormones. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Angie Bartlett. Angie Bartlett. Is this more than one person?
Yes.
Are you signed up?
Yes, I am.
What's your name?
Angie Bartlett,
And then
Angela Peterson. And then,
I didn't call anyone else up.
well, they're gonna hold the signs.
I'm not speaking.
No, I'm just the one speaking.
You said you're not speaking, Angela?
I'm the only one speaking.
Not at
She's
this
just,
time.
yeah.
You still want to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, state your name and city, please.
Angie Bartlett, Damascus.
Thank you.
So basically, I'm just here to speak on the FOIAs that we have served you with in the past. And what I want to say is that those FOIAs are for you guys to learn the laws and what laws are being broken within these pornographic material that's in our schools for the kids. And we've been looking for answers from you back. We've got a little bit of reply from you as far as what to, links to look at, but we haven't got any really direct answers from you guys yet in this. And what happens with that is there's laws that are being broken, ORS codes and US codes, federal and state laws. And within those laws, you guys have been notified. So that's the purpose of the FOIAs. And so today, I'm just going to speak a little bit on the FOIA, kind of giving you an education of what that's about, and then proceed forward. So on May 12th, when North Clackamas School District was notified or put on notice about the existence of these pornographic materials that are clearly within the confines of sexual exploitation of children or minors pursuant of ORS code 163688, possession of materials depicting sexually explicit conduct of a child in the first degree, and 18 US code 2252, certain activities relating to material involving the sexual exploitation of minors and how they have neglected to pursue and investigate any and or action to protect the safety and sanctity and well-being of the children. Each and every board member or trustee of North Clackamas School District that is charged with the responsibility to protect the children, beneficiaries, and see that the scholastic experience is fruitful and beneficial in a way that does not harm. The duty of the trustee is to perform for the benefit of the beneficiaries, the children. It is clear that the board members of North Clackamas School District are willfully refusing to take the necessary and interest and actions to protect the well-being of the school children. Such negligence constitutes a clear breach of fiduciary duty pursuant to ORS 114395, improper exercise of power, breach of fiduciary duty, and 29 US Code 1109, liability for breach of fiduciary duty. In fact, that a total of 180 books that have been distributed into the library system containing exploitation of minors is hardly an oversight. Such an inordinate amount is clearly proof that the allowance of these sexually explicit materials is indeed willful and intent to distribute to such. A number of FOIA requests have been submitted to the school district to demand the origins of these decisions and or purchasers and funds allocated for such purpose. According to 20 US Code 1232, protection of pupils' rights, parents and or guardians have the right to inspect all materials that are intended for the use in the education system. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to do legal process. Angela's going to survey each board member and with another FOIA.
Don't
very
come up
much.
here. You can hand it to that person right there. You can, excuse me, our legal counsel is here, so you can speak to her in the back. Thank you very much. Do not hand that to me. Do not hand that to me. Thank you. Please finish up. Your time is up. Next speaker on the list. Next speaker.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Wanda Shell is the next speaker. Fine.
Okay.
Please
hear
state
me?
your name and city.
Wanda Shell, Happy Valley. So I just am here to address the education concerns that I have. I think that our standards have been reduced dramatically. I have children that are 4 years apart, and I really noticed like the lack of homework or assignments and things in that time period. And the reason I bring this up is because I think that when my son decides to go to college, he wants to go out of state. And the concern is if we are reducing our standards so much so that they can graduate, what is that going to do for his self-esteem or just his ability to do well in a classroom when their standards haven't been reduced? So I'm concerned for his well-being, depression, or so on. And I think that can happen for a lot of kids. And I think we've lost focus in this area as far as just what we're teaching, books like that and other stuff, and just really need to focus on what they need to do. There's great teachers out there. And I think we've just lost focus. And the other thing was like, I have a brother who's gay, love him dearly, great uncle to my kids, support Gay Pride Month, but it's such a focus. And Memorial Day wasn't even acknowledged on the school thing. So where are our priorities? And now our state is one of the lower ones in education. I don't have statistics, I don't have numbers, but we haven't been doing well. And we really need to get those numbers up. And that's all that I have to say.
Thank you. Lisa Wilkins.
Lisa Wilkins, Happy Valley. I wanted to thank you all for your service. This will be my third or my fourth time, I believe, speaking before this board. One of the things that came out at the last board meeting, which I was not able to be here for, but I heard it from a few different speakers, was the idea of the hate-filled speech that was coming from a number of people that were in opposition to what is happening in our school district with the curriculum choices that are being placed before our children. And I feel like I'm not quite understanding where those feelings of hate-filled speech are coming from. I think the people that are concerned about what's been going on are truly, truly concerned. I don't know that there's any hatred for anybody regarding their lifestyle or, their racial identity or anything. I truly believe that parents and taxpayers and teachers are concerned about our children and what is happening. So I wanted to put that out. Another thing I wanted to put out was that someone I spoke with very recently made a very important comment about the fact that parents need to know what their children are being served in terms of the curriculum. They want to know. And the reason why everybody is so upset is because there seems to be this lack of transparency. And this person said, it's not so much that parents should have the right to opt out. It's that parents should have to opt their child in to these kinds of curricular materials. And that should be on the district's end of it. That unless a parent says, I want my child to have this kind of instruction, then it shouldn't be taught. It shouldn't just be assumed that every child needs this or every parent should want this for their children. So that's one thing I want to kind of get on the record, is this whole idea of opting in rather than this narrative of parents should have the right to opt out. I believe the school district needs to say, no, parents, you need to opt your child in to this kind of thing. Otherwise, it's not going to be taught. And I'll end with that.
Thank you. Is it Daisha Hansen?
Is this ready? It is. Thank you. Thank you for your service to our school district. I am a taxpayer here. My children went through North Clackamas School District. So I do have a very selfish and personal interest in how things are going.
Can you
I-
please state your name?
Daisha Hanson.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've talked a lot about opting in and the ideas about what confusion brings when we're training kids in sexuality at too early of an age. I wanted to bring that full circle into what is the result? And it says 10 to 15 years after surgical reassignment, the suicide rate of those who had undergone sexual reassignment surgery rose to 20 times that of comparable people of the same age. Is that what we want for our students? And it's a rhetorical question. Of course not. Of course not. So I'm here to propose that we return to the ideas that each and every child is very special, uniquely special, very uniquely talented, and that we promote a curriculum that is wholesome, that challenges the mind of the child, and not use curriculum that might defile that mind. We all want what's best for our children. And I implore you to think about what you might be doing innocently, not meaning to, but that we do want our children to be able to grow up with sound minds, sound reasoning, able to make great decisions for their whole life. And if we promote things like this, that we're taking that right away from them, and we should not be doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Peterson.
I'm Angela Peterson. I live in Oregon City. I have 3 students that have gone through the district. I was a student in the district, my husband was, and I taught in the school district. I just want to address the board on some of the ongoing concerns. Our children have shouldered the brunt of the pandemic and have endured tremendous stress during the extended lockdowns. The number 1 priority of North Clackamas School District should be to focus on bringing student skills back up to the national average. The cement is drying on the state of our education system in Oregon. We are currently at the bottom 5% of the country, and we do not underestimate that challenge. But I believe allocating precious instructional time toward controversial political topics with mature themes is not appropriate, and neither is burdening children with the task of advocating for social issues. So to the board, I ask you, is this focus away from a classical education working? What are the results of the standardized testing administered this year? Was there a baseline test given to all students in the North Clackamas School District at the return to all students in person at school to assess the learning loss during the lockdowns? What are your recovery plans to cover these losses? Is there a plan in place to help students overcome the gap? What are the results? State and local school agencies received $190 billion in federal pandemic relief. That amounts to more than $3,500 for the average K through 12 student in public school. North Clackamas School District has the aid money to assist these challenges. Did that money go towards reducing this achievement gap, or did it go towards non-academic programs? Many high school students shortly will be heading to universities, colleges, trade schools, and jobs with children outside the North Clackamas School District. They will be expected to compete with those students. How will our students compete? How will our students compare? Graduation rates should not be the sole focus of this district. North Clackamas School District often promotes their high graduation rates, but not their academic achievement, which should include state test results and SAT and ACT scores. Why is the sole focus on graduation rates? These are messy and difficult conversations, but parents with a differing set of viewpoints need a seat at this table. As stakeholders, if you only marinate in a particular set of ideas, How does this affect the next generation? We are losing the ability to talk to each other and that it's okay to have a difference of opinion, thus allowing disagreements to turn into moral monsters. We are asking to have a respectful dialogue. In closing, I would just like to also say it is inappropriate for any board member to approach one of us out in the lobby to make threats and harassment. Please do not involve yourself
Can
with
you
that again.
please, would
Thank
you
you.
like to send us those questions, Angela? Would you like to send us those questions? And would you like to have a meeting with a board member?
Yes.
Okay. Director Schrader, are you open
I
to
would
having that
volunteer
meeting?
for that. I would volunteer for that.
Excellent. We will make sure we reach out to you. Please email those questions. Thank you. Next on the list is John Hafferty. I don't know if I said that correctly, so please correct me.
I'm John Mahaffey with Happy Valley. Thank you for meeting. Your job's got to be tough, and I imagine you're not enjoying it. Dr. Ben Carson, in his book, You Have a Brain, his mom went in and cleaned houses for wealthy people. She noticed some anomaly there because they had no TV, but they were reading like crazy. So she came home to her two sons and said, boys, we're changing things. We're going to watch TV for 2 hours a week, and we're going to start reading books. Now, what would have happened had those boys had a different mother? Well, I'm sure everybody knows Dr. Ben Carson was the world's greatest brain surgeon. What would have happened if that mother had come home and said, hey, we're being hosed by the white people, the wealthy white people? We would have lost the world's greatest brain surgeon. We got to think about that. Aristotle said, he's referring to courage, he says, courage is the mother of all virtues, because without it, we can't consistently move forward on the other issues. I'll get back to courage in a minute. George Soros and Klaus Schwab. George Soros is funding district attorneys, and we saw what happened in that election just a couple of days ago in San Francisco. San Francisco is over 90% liberal, progressive, or whatever other category you can refer to there. Less than 10% are conservative family values. They had a recall on that gentleman or that person, and he lost in San Francisco, which most people would refer to as a den of iniquity. He lost 60% to 40% on a recall. We'll get back to that maybe in a minute. We've got General Milley. He's in charge of all the military in the United States. And there can't be anybody with a reasonable brain that would say that we had anything but an absolute disgrace and a debacle in Afghanistan. Prior to that, in the new administration there hadn't been one soldier lost to a shooting for over a year. We lost 13 soldiers, but that's horrible. But what were they concentrating on? They were concentrating on the woke thing. Are we going to have toilets for this person and this person and this person? And I'm suspecting that, so they did a horrible job in Afghanistan. Oh, gee. Anyhow, are we doing the same thing, the school board here? In other words, you're focusing on stuff that you're here to educate the kids, and you're not here to bring in all this other stuff. What I'd like to do is see if there's anybody willing to meet with the community, and if they, and this has got to change. You guys know it's wrong. And when I talk about courage, what I'm saying is there there's 7 board members, I guess,
Sorry,
is there
Bert,
not?
Sir, you're way over your time.
Okay.
I still have more people I have to get to.
Okay, thank you. I'll just
Thank you.
ask, is there anybody here with the courage to confront if in fact evil
If you
exists in
submit an
this
email,
room?
we can set up a meeting. We're always open to meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you. We never get them though, by the way, but please request them.
We never get them?
We never get requests for meetings.
Okay.
but please do request them. We're always open to that. Next is Brett Duox.
Brett Duax, Happy Valley. So I'll just make this really short. And I'm a little disturbed. I have a son at Happy Valley Middle School, and he came home and told me one day that there's vandalism going on in the middle school there. Particularly, I think one of the bathrooms he was talking about, one of the toilets was ripped out. And I'm trying to figure out what is going on. You guys are in charge of these schools, and apparently this has been going on for weeks. So I'm trying to understand what kind of message that we're trying to send to our kids when they see a school that we paid for is getting vandalized. So to keep shelling out money to repair something for someone to vandalize and there's no accountability for it, what's going on? I would like to know. So is this the example that we want to show our kids, that it's okay to vandalize public property? Because if that's the case, then that's definitely what's happening downtown in Portland, because a lot of stuff are getting destroyed down there. So we need to figure this out, because we can't keep repairing schools and not holding people accountable. And this is the big thing here, is holding people accountable for this type of destruction. So what I'm asking this board to do, and I will contact the board outside of this meeting, is to get together and figure out what your plan is to stop this stuff. And I also want to know what other schools are being vandalized internally by people that haven't been fixed yet. So that's what I'm looking for. So I yield back my time.
Thank you. Nicole Perry.
Hello, Nicole Perry, Milwaukee. I'm a mom of two girls in the school district, 7th grade and 11th grade. I've been a longtime volunteer since they started and have had many different PTA experiences. We moved to North Clackamas School District on purpose because of its reputation, and we've had a really good experience so far. It hasn't been perfect, but nothing is. We've made some really good connections in the school community and the greater community. And a lot of those were made as we walked and biked and strollered and scootered to school. My girls went to Linwood and Sojourner. And I was part of an effort in 2014 to start a Safe Routes to School program there. And if you've been along Linwood Avenue recently, you've seen some multi-use paths that were recently completed. And I was proud to be part of that project as a mom, a volunteer, and the Clackamas County Coordinator for Safe Routes to School programs. That project took a lot of coordination from the city of Milwaukee, the Clackamas County, the Neighborhood District Association, and the school community and district. That collaboration is what made it so successful. I think that is one of the biggest lessons learned, is working together constructively. I'm lucky enough to get to continue Safe Routes to School work with grant funding. And I just wanted to make you aware, once again, that there is lots of grant funding, and I will make sure to keep you apprised of opportunities of that, because there's lots of education, like train the trainer bike fleet education coming along, that you could train PE teachers or community members, and Oregon Department of Transportation is looking to provide bike fleets and helmets. So that's just one example of an opportunity upcoming. Also construction, that Linwood project took a lot of Safe Routes to School funding from the state. So that's there in cycles, and I'll let you know when it comes up. So other things I just wanted to let you know about this year after the disconnect of the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we got to do some pedestrian safety at Billquist with 2nd graders. I did tons of walk and roll to school days where I got to celebrate kids getting to school actively. And Billquist was one of the first schools we worked with, and they'll be getting some improvements on Webster Road. So look for those. We've also been working with Oregon Trail, had a walk and roll event in Happy Valley is really putting forth a big safety campaign. So I'm proud to be a part of that and happy to talk to anybody in the community about safe routes to school. And I also just want to thank you, board members, all the teachers and the families of the district during this hard time that we're hopefully coming out of. And I really respect open minds, open hearts, and respectful civil discourse. Thank you.
Thank you. And next on our agenda is the 2022-2023 alternative placements. This is a discussion item, board members. It will come back for action. Yvonne Dibley, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. This evening, I'm bringing forward a discussion of the proposed alternative program placements for the 22-23 school year. The board must annually approve the alternative programs used by our district. An alternative program placement is most frequently used to address the accommodation of specific needs for students who have a disability, to accommodate expulsion and alternative needs within that expulsion process, and to accommodate the learning needs of students that are 17 and older with few academic credits. These placements require a team of caring adults that try to find the best program to address the students' needs. In your board packet, there is information, including the enrollment data over the past 3 years. As you can imagine, the year that we've had hybrid instruction saw a significant decrease in the number of students that accessed alternative placements. Because relationship and student voice is so important in education, I want to assure you that students who attend an alternative placement program is linked with at least one NCSD staff member who reviews the placement multiple times throughout the school year with the student and their family. And I am here to answer any questions. I'm also here with Vivian Garrison, who is joining us virtually. And she and I can answer any questions regarding placements in alternative programs.
Excellent. Donna, can we get Vivian up so I can see if she has questions? Welcome. Do you have any questions, board members? Direct the way.
Yeah. Any changes from last year's programs?
No, there haven't been any changes. In the past, Luke Scarpino, who has presented to you in the past, and as well as Dr. Aylin Summers, conduct the evaluations. And we have the same placement, the same organizations.
And it might be in 10 words or less, it might be too long to answer, but all these programs get evaluated by NCSD staff on every year, right?
That's correct. And the evaluation, as I said, who the two members that support us with that evaluation, and it's rather thorough. They look at infrastructure, they looked at safety measures, there's sample lessons, there's instruction, student support systems. So that is all included in the evaluations.
And if memory serves me right, we have moved on from other programs based on evaluation. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Director Bauer.
I was just wondering about staffing, because I know we're all faced with that, with especially in certain areas. And I know the Helens View Multnomah, that is overseeing that is the ESD, and I know they were low on some staff. So how is that going for most of the programs? Do you know?
I can definitely look into any staffing information. Currently, or this year, we had 0 students at Helens View.
Okay. Yeah, I was just, this doesn't follow then this is the LEAP program here where they were unable to fully staff that last year.
They had some staffing shortages, and Vivian can definitely address this as well, where there were 4 days of in-person and 1 day of remote learning. There was a rotation of days for staff, and that is how they fulfill their minutes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions or discussions? Okay, seeing none, this will come back in our next meeting. When's our next meeting? What date is that, Donna? June 23rd. Okay, thank you, guys. Okay, next on the agenda is a North Clackamas Education Foundation contract. This also is a discussion item presented by Superintendent James. And I believe we have some representatives online. Yeah.
We absolutely do. Tonight, we have our partners, North Clackamas Education Foundation, that are presenting to you on what they have secured for us in terms of donations and staff and student support, grant funding for our school district, and we'll share that information. And also looking to move forward with a new contract for the next 5 years. And so with us tonight, we have Stephanie Rose and Rory, who are part of their administrative team there.
Hi, thank you for having us here tonight. Rory and I are here online. I know that we have other staff and board members watching on YouTube right now. And we also have several staff out presenting scholarships at our 3 of the high school senior award ceremonies tonight. So a lot going on. Appreciate you letting us come to you and discuss where we've been over the last 5 years and where we're going. I will go ahead, and I think I've got screen sharing capabilities here. If you all can see that, fine. All right, looks like it. So talking about just running into it first, looking at where we've been over the last 5 years. We had a $1 million goal with the district to meet our contract obligations. And looking over our, that started in 2017. This is the last year of our contract. And this is what our funding looks like. You can see that we have kind of a bit of an anomaly in 2020, 2021. And that was in kind of direct response to the pandemic. We'll talk about that a little bit later, where we actually increased our funding to support to the district rather than pulling back, which is what a lot of nonprofits did, just kind of facing uncertainty. You'll also notice that we have 2 splits here. The lighter blue is the funding that goes directly to North Clackamas Education Foundation programs. The darker blue is what we call our fiscal sponsor funding, which is funding that goes directly to North Clackamas School District programs, such as the Family Support Center, emergency housing, backpack buddies, lunch buddies, those kinds of support networks for the district. And you see that, of course, in 2020, 2021, our community funneled a lot of their money in that area because they knew that it was a need of our students and our families during that time. In fact, during that first few months of the pandemic, March through August, we fielded more donations for the Family Support Center than we had in the history of the Education Foundation. So it was an interesting dynamic to adjust to. And then you see, of course, our expense distribution down there, where we are right in line with most other nonprofits, with a slight dip in where we spend wages. So this is what we're looking at, where our money has gone over the last 5 years. You can see we've done almost $400,000 in scholarships to graduating seniors. 140,000 has gone directly into the classroom, into teachers that have come to us saying that they need support in their classrooms and they need that extra boost of help. This could be anything from pens and markers to, I know one of our really fun ones just this last year was whiteboards for math. So students like whiteboard tables. So students could actually do math on the tables as they were having math instruction. And from what we hear from those teachers that did that, it's really engaged their students in that math. And of course, we've helped with after school support, everything down to, you see that family support center funding, which is a little out of the norm, as well as emergency housing funding that generally is fiscal sponsorship funding. But during the pandemic, the district did come to us and ask us to shift funding to these areas, which would have normally gone to school supplies, et cetera, because our students and teachers were and educators were in need of those supports. And then down below is what we call our fiscal sponsor services. As you can see, we've funneled about $270,000 through NCEF in the last 5 years directly to those support services at the foundation. And looking at how we got there, we have done a lot of modernization and expansion to the foundation in the last 5 years. We've expanded our fundraising capabilities by updating our website, moving things to online platforms. We've expanded our enrichment grant program. We now do 2 enrichment grant rounds a year, so teachers can have funding for fall programs as well as spring programs. We've expanded our scholarship program significantly. Not only have we taken on our own scholarships where people have come to us and said that they would like to open a scholarship in memorial of someone, but North Clackamas School District also transferred the administration and oversight of 3 scholarships that they historically have taken on to us. And so now we handle the Harold Taylor Scholarship, the Oak Nell Scholarship, and work with OCF to administer the Owen and Edna Sabin Scholarship. We have enjoyed a very heightened relationship with the Family Support Center. It's one that's near and dear to me. I feel like it's been very important for the foundation to do that, especially over the pandemic. Our previous director of social services, Michael Rawls, said to me that, you know, they don't have fundraisers. That's not what they do. So us being able to fundraise and support for them and get the word out there of the funding that they needed was a significant help throughout the pandemic when they did need that support funding. We also have made a big strides in focusing on community, you know, increasing our name recognition, improving our positive interactions, filtering ourselves out throughout the community to talk with stakeholders, building relationships with Rotary, the Chamber, Lions Club, the churches in the area that fund Backpack Buddies and our Family Support Center. And, you know, and that's been one thing that we looked at, where we had many nonprofits scaled back or withheld their funding over these last couple of years because of the uncertainty of where funding was going to come from and where it was going to go. And I think for us, it was really important that we did not do that, where we increased our funding to make sure that the community saw that our students and our families and our educators were in need, and we stepped up to help be the funnel to help the community meet those needs. And then I think that I will turn it over to Rory with that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. I want to take a few minutes to talk about where we're going. The organization has been through a lot, as Stephanie has shared with you. We're not like other organizations that have our share of challenges through the pandemic, and yet we're out the other side, and we're anxious and excited about how we can partner and create new programs and new funding streams for the future. So that's really where we're headed. And really, you know, there's a couple of things about our strategic plan that I do want to outline as you look to see, is this a good program to invest in? And, you know, of course, our stance is yes, of course it is. And here's, you know, why our thinking is that way. You know, one of the things about growing our donations, and you've seen in the past, your investment in this has, I'll show you a few pieces of this information, but it has really come back in spades to help distribute the funds, help scholarships, help really manage a lot of these programs that really take more than we might think about to really administer. And so, really when we're looking at going forward, we're looking at building these programs, adding more, programs to it, adding, as structures and things of that nature. We're a small organization. We have, 2.5 staff at the moment. And then the rest of our team is all volunteer board members. So with that team, we're producing a lot of great results, and I'm really excited about that. Really, future goals that we really want to look at here is increasing the enrichment grant funding. We know this is a great program. We know it really helps. We've had some great applications, and we can't fund them all. We're always so torn about how to make these things keep going. We're so excited that people are continuing to fill out the grant funding. So we see the priorities of how to do this. And then we're really looking at how do we look at sustaining our organization. It's always been our goal to actually be this self-sustaining body that can support the school without the need for the district's support in terms of funding. Of course, we're always interested in the strategic partnership, but the funding, how do we get to be this sustainable organization? And that's really on our minds. Even though through the pandemic it was really difficult because we didn't have our huge gala events, and we redistributed all the funding to the right areas, which took a lot of our resources away. So now it's about recovery. This is really what the next step in the strategy is about. How do we recover and where do we go next? And so those are a couple of things we look at, but really the idea about the recovery is taking this, we have different streams of funding, but this unrestricted funding is really where it's all about for us, because that allows us to prioritize the funding to help the organization and give back in the school in other ways too. So that number's been down over the years, and so now we're really looking to get that up. So it's one of our big ideas. Really, this is the ask, right? So if you look at this slide here, there's really 5 points that I want to go over. The first one is, what is our funding request? So this next 5 years, we're looking to actually have $650,000 in district funding to support ours, which is an increase of $100,000 over the last contract. And in exchange, we really want to return more for you. And so really the idea here is a couple of things. One is that we give you a better return on your investment. In the past, we've given a 50-50 split in terms of your funding to what you give money back. We're looking to increase that to 55-45 over this plan. That's one of the parts of your return on your investment that's improving over this plan here. We also have really looked at like what does our program need? And this particular funding, if you really just kind of break it apart, really, we're just basically trying to cover inflation. If you look at it and spread across the 5 years, a big chunk of that money simply does that. So, when you're really looking at what the return on your investment is, if you take inflation out of it, it's even better than we've shown in this diagram here. So really, our idea is to front load this contract, right? As you can see, and then slowly, in the 5 years, pull as far back as we can and try to get this unrestricted amount higher. And we're going to look at different structures and having more events and looking at how do we go after big donors. Those are all parts of our strategy that we've looked at. And how do we reinforce the board and the staffing? We've relied on volunteers for so long, and we've called this a working board, and people have been so generous in the past to give their time, but that's just not the state that people are looking to volunteer their time in anymore. There isn't as much of that opportunity out there. So we've got to think about all those things in terms of what we're going to do next and how we're going to do that. But I'm really excited about the level of commitment amongst the team and the staff. They've done a wonderful job of getting through all this. And so we're looking to see how do we recover. The 2 years of not having the gala, that hurt a lot. But yet here we are out the other side. So really, we're looking at over the 5 years of returning that investment. The return of 650,000 would be 1.3 million over the 5 years. Now, there's also this idea that Stephanie was presenting earlier on the slide of the total amount of funding and how we count it. So the fiscal sponsored money, the dark blue money on the previous slide, isn't counted in our current contract. And the reason that's important for us is because I already shared with you our resources are cut thin. And it's really important that we make sure that we justify all our resources and how we're actually utilizing them in the right manner. And so not counting them doesn't really make sense in our minds. But if you counted all of the 5 years of fiscal sponsors on top of what we committed to for the contract, you can see we're already capable of producing 1.3 million in the return. But now, I think we can do even more. This is just the minimum level of what we want to provide. We really want to do a lot more. That's our plan and our promise. So really, those are the kind of the terms and what we're thinking for the next 5 years. We did want to allow for a few questions to be asked here, so we could look to see what we need to do to fine tune this proposal to help you determine whether or not this is the right program for you. I'll pause.
Go ahead and let me know if you'd like me to unshare my screen or if you want it kept up for questions.
If you can unshare, that'd be great, because then we can see both of you guys. Thanks. Thank you guys for that. Board, do you have any questions? And I know we have you, Orlando. I see your hand up, Director Perez.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Rory, for the presentation. A couple questions. Rory, as I'm sure you know, I heard you say that North Clackamas Education Foundation is recovering. And I'm sure you know, we as a school district, we're recovering too. And you mentioned resources cut thin. I'm sure you realize we have resources that, and we could be imminent based on what folks are saying about the economy here in the future. We could be dealing with lots of cut resources. So I'm sure you're aware of that too. So my question is, you mentioned North Clackamas Education Foundation is a good program to invest in. So I'm wondering, can you provide a number of, and you mentioned also about partnering and new funding streams for the future. So I'm wondering, Rory and or Stephanie, if you could provide a number of how many business owners you've reached out to in our school district to help to create that strategic partnership and to donate to help the North Clackamas Education Foundation.
So I'll start the question, but then I'll give it to Stephanie here in just a moment. Thank you, Director Perez, for your questions and your concerns about making sure that we're fiscally responsible with the resources. Certainly, we can pull up the numbers. We keep pretty detailed records of what we have, and I'll let Stephanie see if we can pull that up. If we can't pull it up now, I'll certainly get you the information, because obviously it's something that's a concern. I think that looking at, certainly the businesses are going to be a big part of who are these bigger donors. We've seen the Kaiser Permanentes and the other big organizations, Blunt International, step up time and time again in our community to do things like this. And I don't necessarily know if that's the exact strategy we're having. We're looking at all different strategies on how to do this. I think keeping our mind open is part of this. So I really am looking, why this is a great investment. Despite the fact that we are in a bad economy and we might not have enough resources, we've acted and operated under the lack of resources for years. And I think we're really, really good at it. And we've been able to produce pretty darn good results as we've come and shown you. And we've pivoted during the pandemic to show you that we're willing to change how we do things to make sure that the district's strategic goals are met. If you don't think that's a good investment, don't invest. If you do think that's a good investment, $100,000 is not a lot of money, just to be frank with you. But if you need the other supporting information, then I want to make sure that you have what you need to make a good decision and that you're being fiscally responsible. But if you need to know how many business owners we reach out to, certainly give you that information. I'll just let Stephanie answer the other details. She has more data than I do.
I will definitely, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I can definitely get you an outline plan of what businesses we are planning to reach out to or getting increased support from. I will say that one thing, we do have some new partners. Rory mentioned one of them, Kaiser Permanente, is actually one that we partnered with newly over this pandemic. And I think that and other key players, we've got Chartwells, they do a lot for the community. We have some other key players in the community. And I think one thing that strikes me is I think it was our movement toward that carried us through the pandemic. early 2020, from my perspective as the head administrator of the foundation, we were really poised to take a huge leap as an organization. And we got pulled back from that in a lot of ways. But I think that those relationships that we had built leading up to that, and that we continued to foster throughout the pandemic, is really what allowed us to make it through and to come out the other side in a fairly good position and be able to support the district as we did.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to get the numbers, how many actual business owners you've reached out to in the last year. Because as we all know, there are many benefits to the community in having a good school, a strong school. And we all know that good schools bring families, bring businesses, and that increases the local economy, right? So partnerships with businesses, that's a return on an investment, because if we can partner with businesses for our students, that's going to bring a return. That's another kind of investment. So yeah, I'd be curious to know that number. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah.
Director Schradel?
So I understand you coming forward and saying, here's a presentation and what you're looking for the next contract. But I want to go back to the deliverables of the existing contract. So in the pandemic years, the slide showed that your numbers were actually higher than pre-pandemic on the chart itself. So I'm kind of trying to figure out what the intents of the next 5-year contract that you're proposing. 5+ years ago, when this board heard it, it was presented that we would be doing the investment, so you would be able to front load, and we would not be renewing. I was under the impression that we were not going to be doing another chunk of money because the foundation would get to a place where it would be self-sufficient. And that was articulated. Now, the question is, back then I asked the question, well, what's in your reserves? What's in your bank account, or what's coming? What are you converting over time? So please share with us what your reserves are now, because I kind of remember what they were 5 years ago.
So I can go ahead and I'll take that. So I will say that our unrestricted funding has increased coming in from 2017. And of course, and probably recognize that we have had a complete leadership change in the foundation over the last 5 years. So things were adjusted that way. I will say that we held steady with our unrestricted funding.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll ask my questions very specifically, and I ask the questions because I want those answered, not this question. So I'll get back to my question. Did you receive the money from North Clackamas School District as promised per the contract that you have?
Yes. And so
$500,000, you did receive it.
Yes.
Did your organization return $1+ million back to the school district in kind
Yes.
of money? Okay, I need to see that in detail, because I don't understand how you're at the number you are. I do know that you did incorporated even donations that I provided. So you incorporated those numbers, but I donated them to the school district and they got into your column for donation. And so I don't think you should be accounting for donations that I do. They were to the school.
Okay, I don't think I understand that part. So we might discuss that later. I wanted to make the point to your question that Rory touched on it earlier. Our unrestricted funding has not climbed, even though our assets have climbed. Our assets are close to a little over $200,000 higher than they were back when this contract started. But we have a vast majority of our community, and this is what happened over the pandemic as well, that directs their funds to go to specific programs or to specific places.
Yeah.
And so where we're looking at, you mentioned yourself that our funding increased over those couple of years of the pandemic. And that was really in response to the support that our community needed. And those are the types of things that have kept our unrestricted, where we have our operating costs and things down and have kept it not increasing at the same rate that our restricted assets are. And all of our budgeting work, everything is public record. So we'll be more than happy to get you our latest treasury reports and budgets and all of that.
Do you know how much is in reserves? I mean, who does the financials for your organization? You know you're going to come present. You know I'm going to ask questions. I asked them a lot of questions 5 years ago. So how much money approximately do you have in reserves?
We have are you talking overall or just unrestricted?
Overall.
Overall,
I remember the numbers we had before.
About 600 and some odd thousand.
So that's up 400,000 from 5 years ago. So,
Right.
and the school district did 500,000. And then what I see, or what I believe I'm being said, is $1+ million returned back to schools.
Right.
Is that including time? Like are you accounting for your time in that equation?
We are not. No, that is direct funding. That is just direct funding. That's not time that we're accounting for. And I think, you mentioned the return. The district gives us under the current contract, gives us $110,000 a year. We immediately return 125. The district says, this is where we want 125,000 to go. And so that is an immediate return on that current 110, if that makes sense.
So Chair, I'd have an interest, I know there's a discussion for this to be a 5-year contract, but I would rather be seeing if a ad hoc group would get together, because I'm not in favor of 5 years when I'm not seeing the data to justify the money going out. If they have 600,000 in their bank account, they can start to be self-sufficient. Bottom line, if we give them 650,000, they give us back 1.3. Well, that sounds great, but the difficulty is we shouldn't have to give them the 650. They can just do the 650, return to the school. This board retains the budget oversight of the money that we would give them that would be returning back to us anyway. And that's what the intent 5 years ago was. And some board members weren't here 5 years ago, but this board member's point of view was we were seeding them so they could become self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
And
so I hear a request for us to potentially have an ad hoc group. I can follow up with our superintendent on that, and we'll go from there. But thank you for that. Any other questions for our presenters? Director Benaloga?
Yes, thank you. I just have a couple of questions about just and kind of on the same lines of fundraising. What are I know you have a board as well, and I know they're volunteer. What are the expectations of your board members? Are there fundraising expectations of your board members, or what are the expectations of your board?
Yeah, I can answer that. So we don't have a fundraising expectation for the board. In fact, really, our board, we've had a board of maybe 7 at the moment. Sorry, we have 9 at the moment, but at times during the pandemic, we're down to 5. And so the expectation is really, what can you give? We'll take anything, right? So, our board is really made up of people who are, passionate about the school system. The same 5 people have been on 4 of the 5 people have been on the board for a very long time, over 10 years. So the commitment level is great, but finding new board members is challenging. So there isn't necessarily you have to bring in X amount of dollars. It's what resources you have. Do you have time? Do you have treasure? Do you have talent? We'll utilize you in some way, shape, or form to help achieve our goals. So in that sense, it's been helpful. But the way the organization was 5 years ago is not how we are today, and we just went through a pandemic, right, where the world got turned upside down. So, how we respond to the organization and how we do things has all got to change, right? And that's why we're trying to think strategically, like, how do we support these changes? And so, as we look at what's next for our board, those might be the right things to ask for. But right now, we're not in that, not in that space yet. So, we're putting things back together, right? I mean, yes, do we want to be sustainable? To Director Schrader's comments and to your comments as well about what does our board actually do? I'm a volunteer, right? And I took over as chair coming into the pandemic. I I took over because there was a need, not because I really wanted to. I saw that, this is an opportunity to help. And so, that's where we're very thankful to have those positions. And I wish that we could advertise, hey, come join our board and you're required to bring in 10 grand or whatever it is. I would love to have that, but I'm not that fortunate.
And I certainly understand that. I know the difficulties that boards have gone through, and especially in nonprofits. So I do understand that. So you're talking about that you are changing and you're pivoting. So do you have a plan? Is there a plan moving forward for how you're going to look at fundraising and look at building those community partnerships in a different way? Do you already have a plan, or is that something that you're implementing and that you're working on currently?
I would say more of the second. Yes, we've started to have a plan and started to work those things, but unfortunately with the team we've had, and when you lose resources, you got to shift things around at times. I'll be straight with you, right? I mean, we would love to just have Stephanie be the entire time of her employment be out there working with big organizations trying to chase those, the 80-20 rule would apply here. I would love to have that be the case, but someone's got to plan the gala, and someone's got to train the team and make sure the marketing's getting done and all those things too. So our daily tasks and administering all the other grants and scholarships and applications on top of that. So those things are all part of it. Yes, we've had a strategic planning meeting 2 years ago, and this is the work that we did to really think about, hey, if we had all the resources in the world, what would we do? If we were sustainable, who would we be, right? We talked about all these things and how do we get there? To all your point, I wasn't here 5 years ago, and that doesn't change anything. And I wish we were sustainable, right? And do I want to provide you the best service we possibly can and be the best partner? Yes, that's why I brought you this plan, right? And so, as we look at all those things put together, I would love to be a different part of the organization. But one aspect you guys could decide is maybe the organization isn't needed. We fold it, right? Then what do we do, right? That is one point. I mean, if that's really, we want to spend the energy and time to look at it, let's make sure that's on the table. If that's really what you all want to do, then let's fold it. If you're not interested in folding it, you want to invest in it and keep it going, then do that. But if you want to sit around and ask, your questions, ask them, but don't waste my time. I'm asking you guys for 100 grand. It's not a lot of money. I just want to make sure that you guys have the information you have, but my time's valuable. I give it to you guys generously. If you want all this data and all this information, I'll get it for you. But if you don't see our thing as value, we're open to doing that. We're also open to any kind of different way this contract could possibly be out there. But we're doing the best we can. So that's what I have to say.
Hey, Rory.
I'm sorry,
I recognize.
hold on 1 second, Perez. So I just want to make a statement. This is a presentation and a discussion item. This is for Rory and Stephanie. In no way is your presence here not acknowledged or valued. I think that it is an obligation of board members to ask questions, but no one has made a statement of folding the relationship. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear that this is a question and answer period. And it is due diligence to ask good questions. They may be uncomfortable, but we're responsible to ask questions. But no one has made the statement of folding the relationship. I just want to be very clear about that. I respect the fact that you're offering that as an option, but that is not something that we're saying in any way. Okay.
I'm clear on that. Thank you for saying it.
Any other questions?
Can I elaborate on answer Gina's question just quickly?
Yes. Go ahead.
I will say that we did some phenomenal strategic planning work that we set up to be in that place of pulling back from the district. It is one of our lead goals of making the district have less of a, not be funding us as much. I don't think any of our current leadership even understood that it was we might not be coming back on the contract, as was mentioned earlier by Stephen Schradel. And so but our goal was to pull back from the district support and have it not fund as much. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we set this contract ask up the way that we did, going from 150 front loading down to 110 in the goal of pulling that back. And I think it's important to understand that we can't just spend our money wherever we want. If we could take $300,000 of our reserves and spend it on all of these operating costs and things that we needed to do, we could. But our donors say, this is where I want you to spend my money, and we have to honor that. We cannot say, we're putting it somewhere else. We have to honor that. And so the district currently is a large source of that unrestricted operations funding right now.
Director McVeigh.
Hi there. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. I hope everyone else has gotten some grace during the pandemic, and I hope this board can understand that a nonprofit should get some grace also and not judge you on a 5-year plan when no one else is being judged on the last 2 years during the pandemic. That being said, I don't know of a greater return of doubling your money when you to give 550,000, get 1.3 million back. I think that's a pretty good return on your money. And what I do notice is there's a lot of West Side representation in the volunteers and the donors. And I would hope we get a lot of activity from the East Side. And I would hope that we could get some monies and some volunteerism happening from the East Side. And there's a big population over there. There's more schools, and I think we could really benefit from that. That being said, I really appreciate all the work you do. I don't know where the teachers would go for their ask if you weren't around. And we need to be thinking about that. And yes, I do know that some school district we've passed on some programs to you, but that still takes man hours to do, and that would be passed back to the district if you guys weren't there. And so I appreciate all the work that happens with your team. So thank you very much.
Other questions, discussion? Director Bauer.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the work that you do, and I value the partnership. And I respect your openness. That I remember I was a board member years ago, and we talked at the time on the foundation of being self-sustaining, and that's still what we want. And I hear that's what you want. And as other directors said, money is tight in a couple of years. We don't know the funding we're going to get from the state. So there's that awareness, but I do appreciate your partnership. I enjoy the gala and the other things that you do. And I hope that you can reach out and build those sponsorships and make those connections. So I had some other questions, but I think other board members asked those questions.
Okay, I'll just sum it up with thank you guys for the presentation. We have a couple of follow-up items that came out of today, and that was the question about businesses that have been reached out to. And then also we ourselves will talk about, in the itemization of the $1 million that was returned. Those were the two kind of action items that I heard this evening from our board members. And then we have some work here that we'll discuss in terms of potential ad hoc group that we'll follow up on the contract. I will say, as a nonprofit executive, I understand your pain, but I would also say that, don't ever break a sweat. Stay focused, because if you believe in what you're doing, then you don't ever have to fight for it. Just saying that from experience. Other than that, we'll bring this back as a nice action item, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the list is our ad hoc board committee. And this is just kind of an opportunity for us to also have discussion. The district is currently undertaking review of key policies. The agenda item here is to discuss the formation of a potential ad hoc board committee to review staff recommendations and provide recommendations to the full board. North Clackamas School District Board Policy BCE and BCF guides the formation of school district board committees and identifies the following parameters for an ad hoc board committee. This board member only committee exists for specific projects and is limited duration. It is used to research and report on recommendations on a narrow set of issues and topics. This committee may interface with the district staff, but will not typically interface with the public. So at this time, we can have some discussions about a potential ad hoc committee. Open the floor for discussion from the board.
Who's on the policy committee now?
What members are on the policy committee? I believe Director Strado.
Director Benaloga and Director Perez.
Perez.
Excellent. Other discussion or questions?
I have a question, Chair. So what would be the duration of this committee?
We can determine that.
Okay.
I would say it wouldn't need to be more than 90 days.
Okay.
If we decide that we'd like to have this ad hoc committee, which would be outside of what we currently do, this limited duration ad hoc committee would be one option that we can vote on. We'd have to vote on it. The other option that we currently use, so the public is aware, is our superintendent policy review team. That is still an option for us. And then another option for us would be public work sessions in a board meeting setting. So those are our three options here. So I'm looking for a motion or a vote or a permanent conversation.
So currently it's a discussion item because it doesn't say action. Is that correct?
You can change it to that if you'd like to make that motion.
I make a motion to move agenda item number 3, ad hoc board committee from discussion to action.
Okay, properly moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Oh.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion necessary or needed? Director Strado?
In the discussion phase, just would 90 days be more than enough time to complete the ad hoc function?
We're just discussing action.
Yeah, we're just discussing that, but I think the duration, if I'm correct, is that it's limited, but I don't think we can extend it. But we can get some recommendations from our legal. I don't think that the limited duration is terminal. I just think that we'd have to vote to extend it.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
And then do you need board members for this?
We need to vote on that.
We need to vote. Well,
we're voting. Well, we're having discussions to to move from
we're having
discussion to action.
Yeah, right. So right now what's on the floor is to move this discussion item of the ad hoc board committee to an action item. That's what we're discussing. It's been motioned and second. Any other discussion?
I think it's just great to have options. We heard about the 3 and this is the 3rd one. So I appreciate the discussion and I appreciate that this is an option for us to consider as a board.
Great. Are we ready to move to a vote? We are voting on this discussion item to become an action item, which then would require another motion afterwards, just to be clear. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Also an aye. Motion carries. This is now an action item. Ad hoc board committee is now an action item. I'll open the floor for a motion.
I make a motion to form an ad hoc board committee.
Second.
And properly moved in second. Discussion.
I would just, reason why I want to move it to that is I don't want to pile more work on the existing policy committee. They have a lot of policies that are required to have annual reviews, or, I'm making that up. I'm assuming I'll never be on that committee, but they have a lot of work to do, and some before the end of the school year, and then some before the school year starts. So I think this could be hopefully a quick committee that we can get in and get out and get some traction on.
During discussion, can you also state if you have interest in being on that committee, please?
Director Trail, I have an interest in being on the committee. And that's my response.
Excellent. Any other discussion or interest?
Director Way, I have an interest.
Excellent.
Director Bauer, interest if my schedule permits.
I have a dentist appointment.
Grandma.
Then you can't go. But you made the motion, so that automatically makes you the first member, makes you the chair.
I second.
All right, any other discussion? Director Benaloga.
Chair Ford, I would be interested as well.
Chair Ford, I'd be interested if my schedule allows. I have to check my schedule.
Excellent. We do have a motion on the floor. Are we ready to vote? Okay, all in favor? Wait, first, are you all aware of what we're voting on? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 I'm also aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our list is our budget hearing. Gay Ellen, welcome. It is now, do I close it? Do I just open it?
No.
I don't have to close anything. No, like right now, I don't close any. Okay, good. I just need to, okay, at this time at 7:56, I'm opening the budget hearing. Oh, we don't have a sign. Okay, it is now 7:57. Budget hearing is now closed. Thank you. Next agenda item is resolution for fiscal. Oh, that's why you're still sitting there. I get it.
Yes.
Resolution for fiscal year 2022-23 adopting the budget, making appropriations, imposing and categorizing the tax. This is an action item. Whenever you're ready. On to you.
So in front of you, you have the recommendation to adopt the budget in the total amount of $496,946,448. You need to approve the amounts for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 for the purposes shown and hereby appropriated as presented in the resolution. That you would approve the following property taxes for the 22-23 school year upon the assessed value of all property within the district. We have a permanent tax rate of 4.8701 for every 1,000 of assessed value. We have $1.63 per 1,000 of assessed value for our local option tax, and in the amount of $38,688,519 for debt service on general obligation bonds. Finally, the last resolution would be to approve that taxes imposed are categorized for purposes of Article 11, Section 11B, as our education limit permanent tax rate of 4.8701 per 1,000 at the rate of $1.63 per 1,000 for the local option levy, and excluded from limitation the general obligation bond debt service in the amount of $38,688,519.
Point of order.
Yep.
Will the resolutions be one at a time or 1 through 4?
Each one is money, correct? Yeah, so we need to do one at a time, please. We have 4.
Read and vote one at a time.
Yeah, inhale.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Exhale. Open the floor for motion.
So move approval of the resolution for fiscal year 2022-2023, adopting the budget, making appropriations, imposing and categorizing the tax, to adopt or accept the superintendent recommendation, recommend the adoption of the following resolution. Number one, resolution R2122-104 to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 in the total amount of $496,946,448.
Been properly moved. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Excellent. Properly moved in second. Any discussion needed? Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please. Director Perez,
Aye.
Director Benaloga,
Aye.
Director McVeigh,
Aye.
Director Way,
Aye.
Director Stradle,
Aye.
Director Bauer,
Aye.
and I'm also aye. Open the floor for a second resolution. Motion.
I make a motion for resolution R21/22-105 to approve the amounts for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022, and for the purposes shown are hereby appropriated as presented.
Second.
And properly moved in second. Hold on. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? This is not money. Just say aye.
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 Excellent.
Aye.
Moving on, resolution number 3.
Move approval of superintendent recommendation. Item number 3, resolution R21/22-106 to approve the following. Can I get my glasses? To approve the following ad valorem property taxes are hereby imposed for the tax year 2022-2023 upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district. Number 1, at the rate per 1,000 of assessed value of $4.8701 for the decimal point. For permanent rate tax number 2, at the rate of $1.63 per thousand of assessed value for local option tax. And number 3, in the amount of $38,688,519 for the debt service on general obligation bonds.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Director Perez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Benaloga,
Aye.
Director McVeigh,
Aye.
Director Bauer,
Aye.
Director Way,
Aye.
Director Stradle.
Aye.
And Director Ford, I'm also aye. Motion carries. Okay, number 4. Open floor.
I make a motion to move paragraph 4, resolution R21-22-107 to approve the taxes imposed are hereby categorized for the purposes of Article 11, Section 11B as 1, education limitation permanent rate tax of $4.8701 per thousand, 2, at the rate of $1.63 per thousand, and 3, excluded from limitation general obligation bond debt service in the amount of $38,688,519.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion needed? Seeing none. Director Perez,
Aye.
Director Benaloga,
Aye.
Director McVeigh,
Aye.
Director Bauer,
Aye.
Director Way,
Aye.
Director Stradle.
Aye.
And Director Ford is also aye. Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gay Ellen.
Thank you very much. The next item is the construction excise tax rate for the 2022-2023 year. This is an annual agenda item. We have an amount that is given to us every year that from the Department of Revenue that updates the tax limits for the upcoming year. And it's recommended that we go with the updated tax rate of $1.45 for residential, 72 cents for non-residential, and a non-residential maximum of $36,100.
Open the floor for motion.
Move approval of superintendent's recommendation to increase the construction excise tax and amending the intergovernmental agreements, IGA and Clackamas, with Clackamas County, City of Happy Valley, and City of Milwaukee to impose and collect the increased tax rates listed below.
Second.
It's properly moved and second. Any discussion needed? Okay, seeing none. Director Schradel, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Way,
Aye.
Director Bauer,
Aye.
Director McVeigh.
Aye.
Director Benaloga,
Aye.
Director Perez,
Aye.
and I'm also aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next on our list is our English Language Arts Adoption Renewal, grades 6 through 12. This was a discussion item last week. This is now an action item. Welcome back.
Hello again. As you mentioned at the May 26th board meeting, Dr. Myra Gomez and Dr. Andrea Lockhart brought forward the English Language Arts 6 through 12 adoption renewal for discussion. Tonight, we seek board action, and joining us virtually is Dr. Lockhart to assist us with any questions that you may have.
Well, we've already had, this is now an action item, right? So I'll open the floor for a motion.
Director Way makes a motion to move forward the superintendent's recommendation to renew the adoption of the following secondary language arts curriculum materials: Inquiry by Design and Oregon Writing Project.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any additional questions or discussion needed?
I just want to say that how much I appreciated the staff coming to Campbell. And when I was there, it was one of the first sunny days, and there were still parents and community members that showed up and looked through the books and asked questions and got really good feedback, pros and cons about different, I won't say teaching techniques, but, you know, and then they talked me into reading a book that I have procrastinated. So anyway, it's anytime we can get community engagement. I mean, it is just so meaningful, I think. And
we agree.
A lot of their time was probably with no one showing up, but when they were there, they really engaged, and I really appreciate it. And I know we all do. So thank you for that.
Thank you for the feedback, Director.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 I'm also aye. I hear Perez. Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing on our agenda is public complaint. This is an action item. Tara Nelson filed a complaint regarding the public comment at February, is it 22nd or 20 or the 2nd? 24th or the 2nd? I have two different dates here.
I see a board chair. May I add to this? Right?
Yeah,
I see a complaint from March 10th, 2022,
that's the second one.
and I see a February 2nd, 2020.
Thank you. Tara Nelson filed a complaint regarding the public comment at the February 2nd, 2022 board meeting, including the members of the public were not provided with devices for providing remote testimony. The district did not provide technical assistance for members of the public who were having difficulty logging into the meeting, that a teacher speaker was given more time for comment than other public speakers, and that some speakers were not given a 30-second warning. Board policy BDDH, public comment at board meetings does not require a 30-second warning, and there can be some minor variations in the time that the speaker is given. The district does not provide devices or offer technical assistance to members of the public participating in our public meetings remotely. This is one of two complaints. I will separate them out based on date. So this is the first one from February 2nd. Do board members have any discussion of this complaint?
I have a motion. Or did you-
Okay, floor is open for a motion.
I move that we respond to Ms. Nelson's complaint by stating that there was no violation of board policy BDDH, public comment at board meetings, because the policy does not require a 30-second warning. There can be some minor variations in the time that speakers are given, and the district does not provide devices or other technology assistance to members of the public who are participating in our meetings remotely.
It's been a motion put on the floor. Do I have a second?
And I'll email.
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any additional questions or discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 I'm also an aye. Motion carries. This is the second complaint. Tara Nelson filed a complaint regarding the March 10th, 2022 board meeting, including the response to the events of that evening were chaotic, confusing, and unsafe for herself and another constituent in attendance, and that she did not receive an apology following the board meeting. As we are aware, the event at the board meeting created a challenging situation in which staff and board members needed to react quickly to concerns regarding public safety as a result of actions by the members of the public. The district was aware that law enforcement was in the proximity of district office that evening, and no injuries to members of the public were reported to the district. The superintendent called Ms. Nelson after the board meeting to check in on her and offered to answer any questions. At this time, do board members have any discussion of this complaint? Hearing none. Okay.
It was a difficult event that night. I was there. I appreciate the support of staff and that we had and their assistance. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo that. And I appreciate that we were able to continue with our board meeting. Had we not been ushered in the back, we would not have gotten the board business done. And we would have had to have public come back and inconvenience them to be part of a board meeting that got interrupted. So it was pretty chaotic, but we were able to get the work done that we needed to get done that night.
Board Chair, I have a motion. I move that we respond to Ms. Nelson's complaint by stating that the events at the board meeting created a challenging situation in which staff and board members needed to react quickly to concerns regarding public safety as a result of actions by members of the public. The district was aware that law enforcement was in the proximity to the district office that evening, and no injuries to members of the public were reported to the district. The superintendent called Ms. Nelson after the board meeting to check in on her and offered to answer any questions.
It's been properly moved. Do I have a second? Properly
Second.
moved in second by Director Perez first. Donna, that's what I heard first. Any additional comments or discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please, what'd you say?
Aye.
Oh, Director Benaloga, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say also that I truly appreciate the staff making sure that that the building was safe, that the people in the building was safe, and also for preparing as best they could for a situation that we did not know how it would unfold. So thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the motion is on the floor and we have a second. I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next thing on our agenda is authorization to purchase K through 12 decodable books. This is a discussion item. Joel Stewart, welcome back.
Good evening. I am coming to you this evening with a discussion item regarding the purchase of decodable books for K through 2. Decodable books are books that are written with a focus on a particular phonetic pattern or word family. Each decodable book is written using specific sound letter relationships throughout the entire text. These phonic patterns on the pages of these books include word families with short vowels, long vowels, vowel teams, or irregular sounds. 2 weeks ago, the board approved the adoption renewal for ELA K-5. These decodable books are connected text to support the phonics instruction of the program Phonics to Reading that you approved 2 weeks ago. Throughout our adoption process renewal, our teachers shared how important it was to have student text that would reinforce the phonic instruction where students could build fluency and gain confidence. And so with that, the student investment account particularly has a goal of early literacy, which this supports, and we are asking you in 2 weeks to approve this purchase. Do you have any questions?
Director McVeigh.
Well, I'm all for it. I'm just wondering, I'm assuming supply chain issues, 2 weeks isn't going to hurt us. Should we move this to an action item?
It would be again at your comfort level. We have been assured that through SIA, we have until the end of September to have them in hand, but that is up to the discretion of you, the board. We do have it as an action item in 2 weeks.
Well, follow up with that, I'll ask Superintendent James, what would be the desires of the district leadership?
I think if you're comfortable and you don't have questions, it would give us additional time with the supply chain issues. But we also want to make sure that you've had plenty of time to have your questions answered and discussion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Director Way.
I have a question. So I'm assuming this will also help English language learners?
Correct. So through that instruction, we did look for, I'll give you a terrible example, but like the cat ran on the mat next to the rat. It's that, so you teach a lesson and then they're able in a small group to take a text now that has a lot of repetition, whether I'm an English language learner or whether I'm a learner who just learned a new concept. So it's at our primary, and there's a lot of enrichment that is made. And when we looked at the criteria, Director Way, it was specific that it would follow the scope and sequence of our adopted phonics program. It had culturally relevant pictures throughout the text, and that as not in my example, but it had natural, authentic language that would be, again, for an English language learner, it would be how we speak and repetition, again, that they can verbally hear and follow along.
Thank you for that thorough answer. I wanted to ask that because I started learning English formally in 2nd grade, and I remembered learning phonics and that example of the cat and the mat and all that. So I just wanted to make sure that English language learner kids were also being equitably served with this purchase that we're making. And I just like your point about how it seems like the text is also going to be culturally relevant. So that's actually really great too, because I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure I didn't even see like a culturally, appropriate text when I was growing up. So that's great that that's changing now.
Part of our criteria.
Director Schroeder.
Yeah, I'm going to do a motion to move authorization to purchase K2 decodable books from discussion to action.
Second.
Properly moved and second by Director McVeigh first, since we're all in this racing game. Okay, so it's now a motion on the floor to move this discussion item to an action item about authorization to purchase K through 2nd grade decodable books. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor to move it from discussion to action, say aye.
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 Okay, and I'm also an aye. Motion carries. This is now an action item. Open the floor.
First, I'd like to say, Joel, good to see you. Thank you for everything you do for the school district and appreciate you. Move approval of authorization to purchase K through two decodable books.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Discussion or questions regarding the new motion on the floor to accept the recommendation from the superintendent regarding the authorization to purchase K through second grade decodable books. Not to exceed 250,000. Exactly what, ditto, whatever, who made the motion. Any questions, discussion? Director Way?
Yeah, we had quite a spirited public comment earlier, and some of that was around books and things like that. And, you know, we now have a discussion and action item to move, I feel like a really important piece forward in our district. And I just wish that more folks had stuck around to actually learn and understand all of the many ways that we're actually educating our kids.
Other discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, do a roll call vote because it is a purchase. Director Way.
Aye.
Director McVeigh.
Aye.
Director Perez.
Aye.
Director Benaloga.
Aye.
Director Bauer.
Aye.
Director Stradle.
Aye.
And Director Ford is also aye. Motion carries.
Thank
Happy
you so
purchasing.
much.
Next item on our list, next and final item is the supply shed purchase contract award. This is an action item. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you very much. Board, this evening I'm bringing to you a request to approve and award a contract to Tough Shed for the purchase of 41 10-foot by 12-foot sheds in the amount of $339,422.60. As background, part of the capital construction bond of November 2016 included a line item of approximately $6.1 million that encompassed a variety of things such as security, cameras, fencing, and emergency preparedness. This is one of those things that falls under that line item as we move forward with our plan to provide emergency sheltering equipment and supplies in the event of a major disaster. We need a place to store those items. And so this is the first purchase for that process as we close out our bond and making sure we had enough money at the very end to finalize this item. This particular item wasn't a commitment to the community, but it does fall under that line item of emergency preparedness and safety.
McVeigh, move approval to award contract to Tough Shed for the purchase of 41 10 by 12-foot sheds in the amount of $339,422.60.
Second.
Properly moved and second by all the speed racers in the room.
Aye. Oh,
Should be
sorry.
should be noted, we have 2 minutes left on the agenda to be perfectly on time.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, I'll talk really slow. No. All right, any discussion on the motion that's on the floor or questions? Okay, hearing none, Director Perez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Benaloga,
Aye.
Director McVeigh. Aye. Director Stradle,
Aye.
Director Way,
Aye.
Director Bauer,
Aye.
and Director Ford is also aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. It is now 8:23 to be clear, and meeting is now adjourned.